Don't throw away coffee grounds. This is what happens to your soil after 30 days. Every single day, roughly 150 million Americans brew a pot of coffee and dump the leftover grounds straight into the garbage. Gone. Forgotten. But here is something most people never hear. Those soggy, dark leftovers sitting in the filter are one of the most powerful soil amendments on the planet. And the proof shows up in as little as 30 days. Over the next few minutes, this video will walk through exactly what happens underground when coffee grounds meet soil, day by day, layer by layer. There will be a myth that needs smashing, a biological drama most gardeners have never witnessed, a list of plants that absolutely hate coffee, 3 proven methods that actually work, and 1 surprise benefit that could save an entire garden from destruction. Some of this information has been passed around wrong for decades. Time to set the record straight. 1. The Great Acidity Myth. The biggest lie in backyard gardening. Here is a question worth asking. How many gardening rules floating around the neighborhood are actually true? For years, maybe decades, gardeners have warned each other, coffee grounds are too acidic, they will burn your plants, stay away. It sounds reasonable. Coffee itself is acidic enough to upset a sensitive stomach, so the grounds must be dangerous too, right? Wrong. And this is the part almost nobody explains properly. The acids in coffee, chlorogenic, citric, acetic, are water-soluble, every single one of them. When hot water passes through the grounds during brewing, those acids dissolve and end up in the cup, not the filter. What stays behind is a completely different material. Soil scientists have tested spent coffee grounds over and over again. The pH consistently lands between 6.5 and 6.8, almost perfectly neutral. That is the sweet spot where the vast majority of garden plants thrive. So no, tossing used coffee grounds into a garden bed will not create an acid bath. It will not magically turn ordinary soil into blueberry heaven. That old warning leaning over the backyard fence? It was never based on science. It was based on assumption, and assumptions have been holding good gardeners back for far too long. But correcting a myth is only the beginning. What actually happens when those neutral, nutrient-packed grounds hit the dirt? That story starts on day 1, and it gets dramatic fast. 2. The 30-day underground transformation. Most people picture soil as dead, quiet dirt. Nothing could be further from the truth. Beneath every garden bed, billions of living organisms are working around the clock. And when coffee grounds arrive, the entire underground community shifts into overdrive. Think of it less like a battlefield and more like a massive construction site that just received a truckload of raw material. Days 1 through 14, the frenzy begins. Coffee grounds are loaded with organic carbon, somewhere around 45 to 50%, along with roughly 2% nitrogen. That creates a carbon-to-nitrogen ratio near 20 to 1. For soil microbes, this is like ringing a dinner bell. Bacteria and fungi swarm the fresh grounds and start consuming them at an incredible pace. But here is the twist that catches most gardeners off guard. All that carbon digestion demands nitrogen. The microbes pull it from everywhere, including the nitrogen already sitting in the surrounding soil. Scientists call this nitrogen immobilization, and it explains why plants sometimes look a little pale or yellow in the first 2 weeks. Do not panic. This is temporary, and it is completely normal. Something else might appear during this phase. A white, web-like mold spreading across the surface of the grounds. The instinct is to scrape it off. Resist that urge. That white growth is a colony of beneficial fungi, organisms like trichoderma, doing exactly what they are supposed to do, breaking down the tough fibers in the coffee. Here is the part that should make every gardener sit up straight. As these good fungi settle in, they actively suppress dangerous soil-borne pathogens, Pythium, Fusarium, the kinds of organisms that cause root rot and kill plants from below. The coffee grounds are essentially building the soil's own immune defense. Days 15 through 30. The payoff arrives. By the third week, the frenzy slows down. The microbes finish their feast, complete their life cycles, and begin releasing all that borrowed nitrogen back into the soil. But now in a slow, steady, plant-available form. No spike, no crash, just a gentle, continuous feed that chemical fertilizers cannot replicate. And then the earthworms show up. They are drawn to decomposing organic matter like magnets. They eat the spent grounds, tunnel through compacted layers, and leave behind what soil scientists consider the gold standard of natural fertilizer: worm castings. These castings neutralize heavy metals and deliver nutrients in a form roots absorb effortlessly. By day 30, the physical change is unmistakable. Soil that was hard, dense, and compacted becomes loose, airy, and sponge-like. Water retention jumps, roots stretch deeper, air circulates freely. One simple kitchen habit, saving coffee grounds, has quietly remodeled the garden from the inside out. But before anyone rushes to spread grounds across every bed, there is something important to know. Not every plant wants this gift, and a few will actually suffer because of it. 3. The danger zone: plants that want nothing to do with coffee. Here is a fact that rarely makes it into casual gardening advice. Caffeine is a natural poison. The coffee plant did not evolve to produce caffeine for human enjoyment. It produced caffeine as a chemical weapon, an allelopathic compound designed to contaminate the surrounding soil and prevent competing seeds from ever sprouting. Brewing removes most of the caffeine from the bean, but a meaningful amount stays locked inside the spent grounds, and that residual caffeine creates real problems for certain plants. First and most important, never apply coffee grounds near freshly planted seeds or young seedlings. The caffeine can interfere with cell division at the root level, stunting growth or stopping germination entirely. Grounds belong around mature, well-established plants, not tender starts. Second, there is a whole family of plants that will outright reject this amendment. Mediterranean herbs, lavender, rosemary, thyme, oregano, evolved in dry, rocky, alkaline conditions. They despise excess moisture. Coffee grounds hold water like a sponge, and for these drought-adapted herbs, that means suffocating root rot. Asparagus is another sensitive crop. It demands deep, well-drained, alkaline soil. The dense, moisture-holding nature of coffee grounds works directly against what asparagus needs to produce strong, appetizing spears. Geraniums also struggle. They are highly sensitive to caffeine and will show stress quickly when forced to share their root zone with coffee residue. The lesson is straightforward. Understanding what a plant actually needs matters more than good intentions. The best gardeners do not treat every bed the same way. They study. They observe. They match the amendment to the plant, not the other way around. So for the plants that do welcome coffee grounds, what is the right way to apply them? That is where most mistakes happen, and where the next section comes in. 4. 3 proven methods that actually work. There is a common mistake that even experienced gardeners make: piling a thick layer of wet coffee grounds directly around the base of a plant and calling it done. This backfires badly. As those fine grounds dry in the sun, they lock together and form a hard, water-repellent crust, a shell that blocks rainfall, suffocates roots, and does the exact opposite of what was intended. The solution is simple. Pick one of these 3 tested methods and stick with it. Method 1. The scratch-in. This is the easiest approach, and it works beautifully with a light hand. Take used, still damp grounds and scatter them in a thin, even layer over the soil surface, no thicker than 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. Then, with a hand rake or just bare fingers, gently work the grounds into the top inch of topsoil. Finish by covering the area with a light layer of organic mulch, wood chips, dried leaves, straw, to prevent any crust from forming. That is it. 5 minutes of effort. The soil microbes handle the rest. Method 2. The compost route. For gardeners who want maximum nutrient value with zero risk, composting the grounds first is the safest path. Coffee grounds are an excellent green material, high in nitrogen and perfect for heating up a compost pile. But there is a critical ratio to respect. Coffee grounds should never exceed 15 to 20% of the total pile volume. Too much overwhelms the compost worms and microbes, turning a healthy pile toxic. The key is layering. Alternate grounds with plenty of browns, like dry leaves, straw, or shredded cardboard. Over a few months, the heat and microbial activity will completely break down the caffeine and tannins. What remains is a dark, crumbly, nutrient-rich amendment that every plant in the garden will welcome. Method 3. The overnight brew. This is the method most gardeners have never heard of, and it delivers the fastest visible results. Take about 2 cups of used coffee grounds and drop them into a 5-gallon bucket of water. Stir well. Let it sit overnight, roughly 24 hours. By morning, the water will have turned a deep amber color. The soluble nutrients, nitrogen, potassium, magnesium, and a range of trace minerals, have leached into the liquid. Pour this slowly over the root zone of established heavy-feeding plants, tomatoes, corn, peppers, leafy greens. Because the nutrients are already dissolved, the plant roots can absorb them almost immediately. No waiting weeks for microbial breakdown. For a tired, pale plant that needs a gentle lift, this overnight brew is one of the most effective tricks in organic gardening. 5. The unexpected bonus, a natural pest shield. There is one more benefit that most coffee grounds guides leave out entirely, and for many gardeners, it might be the most valuable one. Picture this: a cool morning, dew still on the ground, and the hostas that looked perfect yesterday have been shredded overnight. Ragged holes everywhere. A glistening slime trail winds across the mulch. Slugs. Slugs and snails are among the most frustrating pests in any garden. They feed at night, hide by day, and can devastate tender greens and ornamentals in a single evening. Here is what most people do not realize. Caffeine is a potent neurotoxin to soft-bodied creatures. Research has demonstrated that even a modest caffeine solution, just 1 to 2%, caused a complete exit rate among slugs. Every single one either fled the treated area or did not survive. A ring of scattered coffee grounds around vulnerable plants creates a double barrier. The gritty, abrasive texture irritates their soft bodies. The residual caffeine poisons on contact. No chemical pellets required. No toxic residue in the soil. Just a simple, natural shield built from kitchen waste. One habit, saving coffee grounds, feeds the soil, strengthens root systems, and now guards the garden while everyone sleeps. Conclusion. A coffee bean travels a long road before it reaches a kitchen counter. Grown on a mountainside, harvested by hand, roasted in fire, ground to powder, all to deliver a few quiet minutes of warmth each morning. And the moment the pot is empty, most people consider its job finished. Used up. Done. But the soil knows better. When those spent grounds return to the earth, a second life begins, feeding billions of unseen organisms, loosening hardened ground, shielding fragile plants, and building the kind of rich, living soil that chemicals can never create. Nothing that carries real value is ever truly finished. Not the grounds, not the gardener. If this video changed the way coffee waste looks from now on, pass it along to someone who would appreciate it. A fellow gardener, a neighbor, or anyone who deserves to know that the best things in life often come from what others throw away. Until next time, keep those hands in the dirt and stay rooted in grace.